My name is Nathan Wilson, 32 years old, and I built my successful tech career from nothing. Growing up, I always felt second best to my sister Amanda. Nothing prepared me for the shock when my parents sold our family home and handed the entire $700,000 to her. Then they showed up at my doorstep with suitcases and secret plans. But everything changed when my grandfather appeared at my workplace lobby with documents that exposed their dark scheme. Before I begin this story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit subscribe, and join me as I reveal how family betrayal taught me my most valuable lesson. Growing up in suburban Chicago was a constant exercise in invisibility. My parents, Richard and Diane Wilson, worked steady middle-class jobs. Dad was a sales manager at an office supply company, and Mom taught 4th grade at the local elementary school. We were comfortable but not wealthy. From my earliest memories, the pattern was clear. Amanda was the golden child, and I was an afterthought. When Amanda needed new clothes for school, Mom would take her on special shopping trips to the mall. They would return with bags of brand-name outfits carefully selected to match the latest trends. Meanwhile, I wore whatever hand-me-downs could be salvaged from cousins or bought from discount stores. My parents always explained it away with convenient logic. Girls need more variety in their wardrobes, Mom would say. Boys are simpler. Nobody notices what boys wear anyway. By age 10, I had learned not to ask for things. The standard answer was always a variation of maybe next time, or we need to save for your sister's dance lessons. Amanda took ballet, gymnastics, piano, and later expensive horseback riding lessons. I played Little League baseball only because it was subsidized by the local community center and cost almost nothing. The contrast extended beyond material things. My parents attended every single one of Amanda's recitals, competitions, and school events. They would sit in the front row, cameras ready, beaming with pride. For my science fair victories or baseball games, one parent might show up if it didn't conflict with Amanda's schedule. Often neither would come. Your mom has to help Amanda prepare for her dance recital, Dad would explain when missing my 8th grade graduation. You understand, right? You're so independent. I did understand all too well. I learned early that my achievements would need to be their own reward. This realization sparked a determination that shaped my future. If I couldn't earn their attention, I would focus on building my own success. In high school, I channeled my energy into academics and technology. While Amanda struggled to maintain a B average, despite private tutoring paid for by our parents, I graduated as valedictorian. My college scholarship covered tuition, but not living expenses. My parents had saved for years for Amanda's education, but somehow had nothing set aside for mine. Amanda isn't as academically gifted as you, they reasoned. She needs the support more. College became a blur of classes and work shifts. I juggled 3 part-time jobs: morning shifts at the campus cafeteria, evening help desk work in the IT department, and weekend gigs building websites for local businesses. Meanwhile, Amanda attended a private university with a comfortable apartment paid for by our parents. She changed majors 4 times and took 6 years to graduate with a communications degree. After college, I started at the bottom of a growing tech company, earning barely enough to share an apartment with 2 roommates. I worked 14-hour days, volunteered for every difficult project, and steadily climbed the corporate ladder. By 28, I had saved enough for a down payment on my first home. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine, purchased entirely with money I had earned. Amanda bounced between jobs, rarely lasting more than 6 months anywhere. She lived in an apartment subsidized by our parents, who also paid her car insurance, cell phone bill, and covered her frequent financial emergencies. Despite earning good money, she never seemed to develop financial responsibility. As years passed, I minimized contact with my family. I called on holidays and birthdays, visited once or twice a year, and maintained a civil but distant relationship. My life in Seattle was comfortable. I had been promoted to executive level at my company, expanded my modest first home into a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a desirable neighborhood, and built genuine friendships with people who valued me. My relationship status fluctuated over the years. I dated seriously a few times, but focused primarily on my career. At 32, I was content with my independence and the peaceful, organized home I had created. My success had come entirely from my own efforts, a fact that gave me quiet satisfaction, even as my parents continued to treat it as somehow less impressive than Amanda's latest drama. Meanwhile, Amanda, at 35, still called our parents weekly for financial bailouts. Her pattern was predictable excitement over a new job or relationship, extravagant spending beyond her means crisis, when reality hit, then rescue by our parents. The cycle repeated with such regularity that I could practically set my calendar by it. What I never expected was how dramatically this familiar pattern would escalate, or how it would finally force me to confront the lifetime of unequal treatment I had learned to accept as normal. The call from my mother came on a Tuesday evening in April. I was reviewing quarterly projections when her name flashed on my phone screen. Our conversations typically lasted 10 minutes at most, covering superficial updates before mutual relief, when we could politely end the call. "Nathan, honey, your father and I have some exciting news," she said, her voice unnaturally bright. "We wanted you to hear it from us before we tell everyone else." Something in her tone immediately triggered my suspicion. 20-plus years of experience had taught me to recognize when family news would inevitably disappoint me. "What is it?" I asked, bracing myself. "We want to tell you in person. We thought we could all have dinner this weekend. Amanda will be there too." 3 days later, I sat across from my parents and sister at an upscale restaurant they had chosen. Amanda was 30 minutes late as usual, offering a stream of excuses about traffic that no one questioned. My father ordered expensive wine for the table, another unusual choice that heightened my unease. "So what is this big news?" I asked after the appetizers arrived. My father cleared his throat with the self-important air he always adopted when making announcements. "Your mother and I have decided to make some life changes. We sold the house. The family home had been part of my parents' lives for over 30 years. They had purchased it before Amanda was born, and raised both of us there." "You sold it. Where are you moving?" I asked. My mother and father exchanged glances before my mother answered vaguely, "We are exploring our options. The housing market is so good right now, we got $700,000 for it." "700,000, my father repeated proudly. "More than triple what we paid for it." I nodded, waiting for the rest of the story. What came next stunned me into silence. "We gave the money to Amanda for her dream house," my mother continued, reaching over to squeeze my sister's hand. "She has found the most beautiful place in Lakeview. 4 bedrooms, a gorgeous backyard, everything she has always wanted." I looked at Amanda, who was beaming with excitement rather than showing any hint of gratitude or awareness of the extraordinary generosity. She immediately pulled out her phone to show pictures of a stunning property that looked like something from a magazine spread. "It is absolutely perfect," she gushed. "I move in next month. Wait until you see the master bathroom. It has one of those huge soaking tubs and a separate shower with multiple spray heads." I struggled to maintain a neutral expression as I processed this information. My parents had liquidated their largest asset and handed the entire sum to my sister. Not a portion of it, not a loan. The full amount as an outright gift. "Congratulations," I managed the word sticking in my throat. "That is quite a gift." "Well, you know how Amanda has always wanted to own a beautiful home," my mother said. "And she has been through so much lately with her breakup with Brian." Brian was Amanda's latest boyfriend, a relationship that had lasted approximately 4 months before imploding like all the others. "Besides," my father added, looking at me with the dismissive expression, "I knew so well you are doing so well for yourself. You have your own place already. Amanda needs this more than you do." The familiar justification hit me like a physical blow. My success, achieved through years of hard work and sacrifice, was once again being used as the reason I deserved less from them. Amanda's chronic irresponsibility was once again being rewarded. "And where will you two be living?" I asked, circling back to the question they had evaded. "We have a temporary arrangement," my father said vaguely. "We are considering our options." Throughout the rest of dinner, I noticed both my parents deflected any specific questions about their new living situation. They changed the subject whenever I tried to get details, focusing instead on Amanda's plans for decorating her new house. Later that night, I called my friend Marcus, the only person who truly understood my family dynamic after years of witnessing it firsthand. They gave her $700,000, I said, still struggling to believe it myself. Their entire nest egg, and they were so casual about it, like giving one child the equivalent of a winning lottery ticket while giving the other nothing is completely normal. That is insane, Marcus replied. Are they moving in with her? Is that the plan? They were weirdly evasive about where they are going to live. Amanda's new place has 4 bedrooms, so maybe that is the arrangement, though neither of them mentioned it. Something does not add up, Marcus said. Your parents are not impulsive people. They must have a plan. Over the next few weeks, Amanda flooded her social media with photos of her new house. She posted about achieving her dream home without a single acknowledgement that it had been handed to her. She tagged decorating companies and high-end furniture stores, showcasing expensive new purchases that suggested she was spending even more money beyond the house itself. Meanwhile, my parents remained vague about their own living situation. When I called to check in, they mentioned staying with friends temporarily but changed the subject whenever I asked for details. My unease grew with each conversation. Marcus was right. My practical, planning-oriented parents would never sell their home without a solid plan for where they would live next. What I did not yet realize was that they did have a plan, and I was about to discover exactly what it was. The doorbell rang at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. I had been awake for an hour enjoying coffee and reading the news on my tablet, still in my pajamas and robe. I was not expecting anyone, especially not at that hour on a weekend. When I opened the door, I froze in shock. My parents stood on my porch with 4 large suitcases and several boxes piled behind them. "Surprise," my mother exclaimed with forced cheerfulness. "We thought we would come for a visit." Before I could respond, my father started moving a suitcase toward the door. The apartment we were going to rent had some unexpected delays. The owner said it needs 2 more weeks of renovation before we can move in. "We thought we could stay with you for a few days." They pushed past me into the entryway, already discussing which guest room would be better for them. I stood speechless as they began carrying in their luggage, without waiting for my response. "I am not sure this is a good time," I finally managed. "Nonsense," my mother dismissed. "You have plenty of space here, and it is just for a short while. We will hardly be in your way." The manipulation was so familiar that I automatically fell into my lifelong pattern of compliance. Before I knew it, they were unpacked in my guest room and my mother was rearranging my kitchen cabinets. "These glasses should really be closer to the refrigerator," she said, emptying the cabinet where I had carefully organized my glassware. "And your spices are a complete mess. Let me sort those for you." By lunchtime, my father had taken over my living room, setting up his laptop on my coffee table and spreading his papers across the couch. He had already changed the thermostat setting and switched the television to his preferred news channel. "You keep it too cold in here," he informed me, "and your television is positioned at the wrong angle. We should move it to the other wall." What I had expected to be an uncomfortable but brief visit quickly morphed into something more concerning. My parents criticized everything from my choice of coffee to my work schedule. My mother questioned why I did not have proper curtains in the dining room, while my father complained about my wasteful habit of leaving chargers plugged in when not in use. After 3 days, there was no mention of leaving. My carefully organized home had been systematically rearranged to my parents' preferences. My mother had taken over the kitchen entirely, cooking elaborate meals and insisting we eat together every night. My father had established dominance over the living room, creating what he called his temporary office that somehow seemed increasingly permanent. "Your shower pressure is terrible," my mother informed me on day 4. "Your father thinks we should replace the shower head, and while we are at it, that guest bathroom really needs updating. Those tiles are so outdated." "I like my bathroom the way it is," I replied, trying to establish some boundary, "and I am not looking to make any renovations right now." "Well, we could help with the cost," my father offered, seemingly generous. "Consider it an investment in your property value." The comment triggered alarm bells. Why would my parents, who had just given their entire home proceeds to my sister, suddenly offer to invest in my house? By the end of the first week, the few days had stretched with no mention of departure. I came home from work one evening to find my mother going through my mail at the kitchen table. She quickly shuffled the papers when she saw me, but not before I noticed she had been opening my bank statements. "Just helping you organize," she said brightly. "You know, you really should consider some better investment options. Your father and I were looking at your portfolio." "You looked at my financial documents?" I asked, unable to hide my shock. "We are just concerned about your future," my father interjected from the living room. "As your parents, we want to make sure you are making smart decisions." Later that night, I overheard my mother on the phone speaking quietly in the guest bedroom with the door nearly closed. "Yes, Amanda, everything is going according to plan," she said. "We are settling in nicely. Nathan has such a beautiful house with plenty of room. I think the long-term arrangement will work out perfectly." Long-term arrangement? My stomach twisted with dread. This was never intended to be a short visit. The next morning I confronted them at breakfast. "I thought you said your apartment would be ready in 2 weeks. It has been a week already. What is the exact date you will be moving?" My parents exchanged glances before my father cleared his throat. "Well, son, there have been some additional complications with the apartment. The owner called yesterday and said it might be another month before it is ready." "Or possibly longer," my mother added, not meeting my eyes. "These renovations can be so unpredictable." "And to be completely honest," my father continued, "we are not sure that particular apartment is the right fit for us anyway. The more we think about it, the location is not ideal." "So what is your plan?" I pressed. Another meaningful look passed between them before my mother reached across the table to pat my hand. "Nathan, dear, we have been thinking. This house has so much space for just one person, and we are not getting any younger. It makes sense for us to stay here with you. We could help with utilities and groceries," my father added, as if offering a great bargain, "and we could even contribute to your mortgage." "This is my home," I said firmly. "I appreciate the offer, but I value my independence and privacy." "Independence is wonderful," my mother said with a dismissive wave, "but family should stick together. Your sister has her new place, and this arrangement would be perfect for everyone." The truth hit me with sudden clarity. They had never intended to get another apartment. The plan all along had been to move in with me permanently after giving Amanda the money from their house. They had not even asked me. They had simply shown up assuming I would comply as I always had. "I need to think about this," I said, standing up from the table. "This is a big decision that cannot be made hastily." Of course, my father agreed too readily. "Take all the time you need. We are comfortable here while you consider it." As I left for work, I realized they had skillfully maneuvered me into a position where saying no would make me the villain. They were already acting as if their permanent residence in my home was a foregone conclusion. What had started as a supposed temporary stay was revealing itself as a calculated invasion. Something about the situation did not add up. My parents had always been careful planners, especially with finances. The idea that they would sell their home without securing their next living arrangement seemed completely out of character. And if they truly needed a place to stay, why not move in with Amanda in her new 4-bedroom house that they had just financed? I decided to do some investigating. First, I called a family friend, Janice, who had worked with my mother at the elementary school for years and knew my parents well. "Oh, Nathan, it is so nice to hear from you," Janice said warmly. "How are you enjoying having your parents stay with you? Your mother told me all about the arrangement weeks ago." "Weeks ago," I repeated, my suspicion confirmed. "What exactly did she tell you?" "Just that they were selling their house and moving in with you. She seemed so excited about it. Said it made perfect sense since Amanda needed her own place with all her activities and social life, but you had that big house all to yourself. Your mother mentioned something about helping you fix it up. You know how she is always wanting to improve things." The conversation left me reeling. My parents had been planning this move for weeks long before they showed up at my door claiming to need temporary accommodation due to renovation delays. The apartment story had been a complete fabrication. When I returned home that evening, I noticed my father's briefcase on the dining room table partially open. A folder labeled Housing Options was visible. Under normal circumstances, I would never invade someone's privacy by looking at their documents. But these were not normal circumstances, and they had already crossed that line by going through my financial papers. Inside the folder, I found a draft of a legal document that made my blood run cold. It was a proposed agreement for shared ownership of my house, with my parents contributing a nominal amount in exchange for 51% ownership. The document included provisions giving them decision-making authority over any home improvements or changes. They were not just planning to live with me. They were planning to take control of my home entirely. The discovery triggered memories from childhood. How my parents had given me a bicycle for my 10th birthday, only to let Amanda use it whenever she wanted because sharing is caring. How they had converted my bedroom into a home office the moment I left for college, while preserving Amanda's room exactly as she left it even years after she moved out. This pattern of taking over what was mine had been established long ago. That night at dinner, my parents introduced a new topic. "Nathan, we have been thinking that we should formalize our living arrangement," my father began casually. "Nothing complicated, just a simple agreement that protects everyone's interests." "What kind of agreement?" I asked already, knowing the answer. "Just something that acknowledges our contribution to the household," my mother explained. "We were thinking we could pay off part of your mortgage in exchange for partial ownership. That way we all have security. And of course, we would want to make some improvements to the property," my father added. "The kitchen really needs updating, and the backyard has so much potential." I kept my expression neutral, despite my internal alarm. "I will think about it," I said non-committally. "We do not want to rush you," my mother said, though her tone suggested the opposite. "But we have some funds set aside that we would like to invest soon, and this seems like the perfect opportunity." Funds set aside, I thought they had given all their money to Amanda. Another lie exposed. "Where exactly did these funds come from?" I asked. "I thought you gave all the money from the house to Amanda." My parents exchanged another of their communicative glances before my father answered. "We kept a small reserve for emergencies. Nothing significant, just enough to contribute to our new living situation." Later that night, I tried to have a reasonable conversation about boundaries and expectations. The response was immediate emotional manipulation. "After all we have done for you," my mother said tearfully. "We gave you life, raised you, sacrificed for your education." "We are not getting any younger," my father added solemnly. "Most children would be grateful to have the opportunity to take care of their aging parents." "This is not about taking care of you," I pointed out. "This is about you taking over my home and trying to gain control of my property." "How can you be so selfish?" my mother demanded. "Family takes care of family. Amanda understands that." "Amanda just received $700,000 from you," I reminded them. "I have received nothing but criticism since you arrived." "You have always been so independent," my father said dismissively. "Amanda needs more support. That is why we gave her the house, but we thought you would want us here with you." The conversation went in circles with my parents alternating between guilt trips, vague accusations of selfishness, and reminders of all they had supposedly done for me over the years. It was a masterclass in manipulation, honed over decades of practice. That night, unable to sleep in my own increasingly hostile home, I made a call I should have made long ago. My grandfather William, my father's father, had always seemed to see through the family dynamic. He had been the only one who consistently showed up for my school events and achievements when my parents were busy with Amanda's activities. Now, in his 80s, he lived in a retirement community about an hour away. "Grandpa," I said when he answered, "I need your help. Something strange is happening with Mom and Dad, and I do not know what to do." "I have been waiting for this call," he replied, his voice strong despite his years. "Come see me tomorrow. There are things you need to know." I arranged to take the afternoon off work the next day, telling my assistant I had a family emergency. It was not far from the truth. When I arrived at my office the following morning, however, I was met with a surprise. My grandfather William was sitting in the lobby dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and slacks, looking remarkably spry for his 85 years. "I thought I would save you the drive," he explained with a wink. "Besides, I wanted to get you away from the house where your parents might overhear." We went to a quiet restaurant a few blocks away, where William insisted on ordering lunch before getting to the serious discussion. "Your grandmother and I watched this happen with your father and his sister, your Aunt Judith," he began once our food had arrived. "The pattern repeats itself. Your parents did not invent this scheme. They are recreating what was done before." William reached into a leather messenger bag and pulled out a folder filled with documents. I have been collecting evidence for years, hoping you would never need it, but preparing just in case." Over the next hour, he laid out a family history I had never known. My father and Aunt Judith had experienced the same dynamic I had witnessed with Amanda growing up. Judith received preferential treatment, better opportunities, and more financial support. When my grandparents decided to downsize from their large family home, they gave the proceeds to Judith for a down payment on her dream house. "But that is not the whole story," William continued. "What your father and Judith never knew was that your grandmother and I had substantial savings beyond the house. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had planned to divide everything equally between them eventually." William showed me bank statements and investment records dating back decades. "Your parents have been doing the same thing. The $700,000 from the house is only part of their assets. They have another $400,000 in investment accounts they have hidden." I stared at the evidence, stunned by the magnitude of the deception. "How do you know all this?" "Your father accidentally used my email address instead of his own when setting up online access to one of the accounts years ago. I have been monitoring it ever since. And last year, when your mother asked me to help with their taxes, I saw everything." William continued, revealing the layers of manipulation. "They have done this before with other relatives. 10 years ago, they moved in with your mother's brother after claiming financial hardship. Within 6 months, they had convinced him to add them to the deed of his house. When he wanted to marry and have his fiancée move in, they forced the sale of the property and took half the proceeds." He showed me letters and legal documents confirming this story, along with similar attempts with other family members over the years. "But why?" I asked, struggling to understand. "They are not hurting for money. It has never been about need," William explained gently. "It is about control. Your parents, especially your father, equate property ownership with power. They use financial manipulation to maintain control over family members. They kept Amanda dependent on them for years, with strategic bailouts and gifts with strings attached. Now they own her completely because of the house." He paused, his eyes sad but resolute. "And they intended to do the same to you. The difference is that you achieved independence despite their efforts to undermine you. That threatens them, so now they are trying to regain control." William went on to explain how my parents had tried similar tactics with him years earlier. "After your grandmother passed, they suggested I sell my house and move in with them. When I refused, they tried to convince me I was no longer capable of living alone. It took a formal competency evaluation by a geriatric specialist to get them to back down. The scope of the deception was overwhelming. My entire childhood understanding of family dynamics was being rewritten. "Why did you never tell me before?" I asked. "Would you have believed me?" William countered gently. "You were a child then, a young adult trying to make your own way. And despite everything they are, your parents, I hoped they would be different with you and Amanda. I hoped they would break the cycle." He placed his hand over mine. "But when I heard they had sold their house and given everything to Amanda, I knew the pattern was repeating. I've been waiting for them to make their move on you." William had brought more than just evidence of financial manipulation. He had emails and text messages between my parents discussing their plan to move in with me and gradually take control of my property. There were even communications with a lawyer about how to structure the ownership transfer to their advantage. "They planned to use emotional manipulation first," William explained. "If that failed, they would claim financial hardship and appeal to your sense of family obligation. And if all else failed, they would create a situation where asking them to leave would make you look cruel and unfeeling to the rest of the family." As painful as these revelations were, they provided clarity I had never had before. The consistent pattern of behavior throughout my life suddenly made sense within this larger context of control and manipulation. "What should I do?" I asked, feeling simultaneously liberated by the truth and burdened by the decision before me. "That depends on what you want," William answered. "If you want them out of your house, I can help make that happen. If you want to confront them with what we know, I will stand with you. Or if you want to try to establish a healthier relationship with boundaries, I can support that too." We spent the next hour developing a strategy. William suggested involving Amanda, believing she too was a victim of manipulation, albeit in a different way. Amanda has been trained her entire life to be dependent on them, he explained. The house may seem like a gift, but it is actually golden handcuffs. They will use it to control her choices for years to come. By the time we finished lunch, I had a clear plan. I would confront my parents with the evidence, but not alone. William would be there, and I would invite Amanda as well. It was time for the entire family to face the truth together. Whatever happens, William said as we parted, remember that their behavior reflects their issues, not your worth. You have built a good life through your own efforts. No one can take that from you unless you let them. His words gave me strength for what I knew would be a difficult confrontation. For the first time in my life, I felt prepared to stand up to my parents with the full understanding of what I was really standing up against. Over the next 2 days, I prepared methodically for the confrontation. I took copies of all the documents William had provided and organized them chronologically. I prepared a simple presentation outlining the pattern of behavior and the evidence we had discovered. Most importantly, I worked on what I would say practicing with William over the phone to ensure I could remain calm and factual even if my parents resorted to emotional manipulation. I called Amanda and asked her to come over on Saturday afternoon for an important family discussion. She seemed confused but agreed to attend. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "We need to discuss some family matters that affect all of us." I answered, careful not to reveal too much over the phone. "Please come with an open mind." On Saturday morning, I rearranged my living room to accommodate everyone comfortably while still creating a setting conducive to a serious discussion. I set up a small table with the organized documents and made sure there was water available for everyone. These practical preparations helped calm my nerves as I anticipated the confrontation to come. My parents sensed something was happening. They watched with suspicious eyes as I moved furniture and organized papers. "What is all this about?" my father demanded. "Are you having some kind of meeting?" "Yes," I answered simply. "Amanda and Grandpa William are coming over at 2 o'clock. We all need to talk." "William?" My father looked alarmed. "Why would you involve him? This is between us." "This concerns our entire family," I replied. "I would appreciate it if you both would be here and ready to have an honest conversation." My mother immediately tried to regain control. "If this is about our living arrangement, we have already told you we are willing to contribute financially. There is no need to make this a big production. Let us talk when everyone arrives," I said, refusing to be drawn into preliminary arguments that would drain my energy before the real conversation. William arrived first 15 minutes early, as was his habit. My father's face darkened when he saw his father walk through the door carrying his own folder of documents. "What is this about?" he demanded again, this time with an edge of worry in his voice. "Let us wait for Amanda," William suggested calmly, taking a seat in the armchair I had positioned for him. Amanda arrived 10 minutes late, looking confused and slightly annoyed at being summoned. Her expression changed to surprise when she saw our grandfather. "Grandpa William, what are you doing here?" she asked, giving him a quick hug. "Nathan has asked us all to have an important family discussion," he explained. "I think it is long overdue." Once everyone was seated, I took a deep breath and began. "Thank you all for coming. I have asked you here because I have discovered some information that affects our entire family, and I believe we need to address it together." I laid out the facts as clearly and unemotionally as I could. I explained how our parents had hidden substantial assets while claiming financial constraints. I revealed their pattern of moving in with family members and attempting to gain control of their properties. I detailed the draft agreement I had found proposing they take majority ownership of my house. As I spoke, my parents' expressions cycled through shock, anger, and calculated innocence. They attempted to interrupt several times, but William gently insisted I be allowed to finish. Most importantly, I concluded this appears to be part of a long-standing pattern of behavior that has affected multiple family members over many years. I turned to Amanda. "The house they gave you came with invisible strings. They have used financial support to keep you dependent on them throughout your adult life. The $700,000 gift was not just generosity, it was another form of control." Amanda looked stunned, her eyes darting between me and our parents. "Is this true?" she asked them. "Do you have other money you did not tell me about?" "This is ridiculous," our father blustered. "Nathan is clearly jealous of what we gave you. He has always resented your relationship with us." "Then how do you explain these?" I asked, presenting the bank statements William had provided, showing the hidden investment accounts. "And this," I added, revealing the draft ownership transfer document for my house. "And these," I continued, showing the emails discussing their plan to move in with me permanently. My mother switched tactics immediately. "We were only trying to help both our children in different ways," she insisted tearfully. "Amanda needed a house, and Nathan needed family support. Everything we have done has been out of love." William spoke up for the first time. "Catherine Richard, this exact script played out with Judith years ago. You know that is not the whole truth." He turned to Amanda and me. "Your parents are recreating the pattern they experienced and perpetuated through their lives. They use financial resources to create dependency and maintain control over family members they claim to be helping." My father's face flushed with anger. "You have no right to interfere in how we handle our family affairs. You were never there for me the way we have been there for our children. I have the documentation of exactly how you have been there for Nathan," William replied calmly, opening his folder. "Would you like me to share the emails where you discussed using his sense of family obligation to gain control of his property?" Amanda had been unusually quiet, her expression, a mixture of confusion and dawning comprehension. "The house," she said softly. "When you gave me the house, you said you would need to stay with me sometimes. You said we should consider it a family home, not just mine." Our mother reached for her hand. "Of course, dear. Family helps family. We gave you that beautiful home because we love you. But you did not give Nathan anything." Amanda continued, pulling her hand away. "And now I find out you have another $400,000 you never mentioned. Money that could have been shared between both your children. Our financial decisions are none of your business." Our father snapped his mask of paternal concern, slipping. "We decide how to allocate our resources based on need." "And who determines need?" I asked. "You have consistently rewarded Amanda's financial dependency while using my self-sufficiency against me. This has never been about need. It has been about control." The confrontation continued for nearly 2 hours. Our parents cycled through denial, anger, tears, and accusations. They claimed William was lying about their additional assets. When confronted with bank statements, they claimed the money was earmarked for medical emergencies. When shown their emails discussing their plans, they insisted their intentions were misunderstood. Throughout it all, I maintained a calm, factual approach, refusing to be drawn into emotional arguments. William provided historical context when needed, gently but firmly correcting revisionist narratives about past events. The most surprising development was Amanda's reaction. As the evidence mounted, her lifelong alignment with our parents began to crack. She asked pointed questions about why they had not been honest about their financial situation. She expressed hurt that they had presented the house as a generous gift while concealing their true motives. "All those times you bailed me out financially," she said slowly. "Were you just keeping me dependent on you? Could you have helped Nathan too if you wanted to?" "We have always done what we thought was best for both our children," our mother insisted, but her justifications were sounding increasingly hollow. Eventually, I brought the conversation to its necessary conclusion. "I want you both to understand something clearly," I said to my parents. "You are not taking over my house. You have 2 options. You can leave voluntarily and find your own place to live with the substantial resources you have, or I will begin formal eviction proceedings on Monday." "You would evict your own parents?" my father asked incredulously, looking around for support. "After all we have done for you." "What exactly have you done for me?" I countered. "I put myself through college. I built my career without your support. I bought this house with money I earned. Meanwhile, you gave Amanda $700,000 while plotting to take control of my property." My mother turned to Amanda with tears streaming down her face. "Are you going to let him talk to us this way, after we gave you your beautiful home?" It was the critical moment, the final attempt to divide and conquer as they had done our entire lives. Amanda looked between our parents and me, clearly struggling with decades of conditioning. "I think," she said slowly, choosing her words with care, "that Nathan is right about the pattern. I never saw it before, but hearing everything today, it makes sense. You have always treated us differently, and I benefited from that. But it was not fair to him. Our parents looked genuinely shocked. Their most reliable ally was questioning them for the first time. They made one final desperate attempt. "If this is how you both feel," our father said coldly, "perhaps we should reconsider our estate planning." And Amanda, the house was a gift that could be reconsidered as well. "Are you threatening to take back the house if I do not side with you against my brother?" Amanda asked, her voice stronger now, because that would prove everything he is saying about control. The threat backfired completely. In their desperation, our parents had revealed their true priorities in a way that even Amanda could not ignore. "I think you should find your own place to live," she said quietly. "Nathan deserves his home to himself. And I need to think about what all this means for my relationship with both of you." Defeated on all fronts, our parents finally agreed to leave. There were more tears, more accusations, and vague threats about family estrangement, but the outcome was clear. They would move out within the week. The next few days were tense but productive. I helped my parents research apartments within their budget pointedly, including financial information that demonstrated they could easily afford a very nice place of their own. Amanda came over twice to help with packing and planning our shared understanding of our parents' manipulation, creating a new bond between us. On their final day in my house, my father made one last attempt to reframe the narrative. "We only wanted to be close to you," he insisted, as they loaded the last of their belongings into their car. "Family should stay together. Family should respect boundaries," I corrected gently. "I hope we can build a healthier relationship moving forward, but it needs to be based on honesty and mutual respect." They left with mixed emotions evident on their faces: anger, resentment, but also perhaps a glimmer of understanding that the dynamics they had relied on for decades would no longer work. As their car pulled away from my curb, I felt a complex mixture of sadness, relief, and hope for a more authentic future. The first night alone in my house again felt strange but wonderful. I walked through each room, reclaiming my space both physically and emotionally. I moved furniture back to where I preferred it, restored my kitchen organization system, and adjusted the thermostat to my comfortable temperature. These small acts of reclamation were surprisingly emotional, representing the larger boundaries I had finally established. The following weeks were a time of processing and healing. I experienced a roller coaster of emotions: relief at having my home back, guilt over confronting my parents so directly, sadness for the healthy family relationship I had never had, and pride in finally standing up for myself. Sometimes these feelings came in waves, overwhelming me momentarily before receding. 3 weeks after my parents moved out, Amanda suggested we meet for coffee at a neutral location. We chose a quiet cafe halfway between our homes, away from the emotionally charged spaces where our family drama had played out. "I never saw it before," she admitted as we settled with our drinks. "The way they treated us differently. It seemed normal because it was all I ever knew." "It was designed to seem normal," I replied. "They established the pattern from our earliest memories." Amanda stirred her coffee thoughtfully. "I feel guilty. I benefited from their favoritism my entire life. And now I have this house that should have been split between us." "You did not create the dynamic," I assured her. "We were both manipulated, just in different ways. You were trained to be dependent, while I was trained to expect less." We talked for hours, comparing notes on our childhood experiences from our different perspectives. For the first time, Amanda acknowledged how unfair the treatment had been. For my part, I recognized that her role as the favored child had come with its own costs. Her ability to develop independence and self-reliance had been systematically undermined. "They are already trying to reassert control," Amanda confided. "Mom calls 3 times a day to ask if I need anything or want company. Dad keeps sending me links to furniture and suggesting he come over to help rearrange things." "How are you handling it?" I asked. "Setting boundaries for the first time in my life," she said with a small smile. "I told them I need space to process everything. It feels strange but necessary." Our conversation marked the beginning of a new relationship between us. Without our parents' influence constantly reinforcing our assigned roles, we began to connect as equals and allies. We started having regular dinners, alternating between our homes and sometimes meeting at restaurants. We discovered shared interests and perspectives that had been obscured by the family dynamic. Meanwhile, I was working through my own emotional aftermath. At the suggestion of my friend Marcus, I started seeing a therapist who specialized in family dynamics and manipulation, Dr. Rivera helped me understand the lifetime of conditioning I had experienced and develop strategies for establishing healthy boundaries. What you experienced was a form of emotional abuse, she explained during one session. The systematic favoritism, the conditional love based on compliance, the use of guilt and obligation as control mechanisms, these are all classic patterns. But they genuinely believe they were doing what was best, I pointed out. Most manipulative people do, she replied. Their self-justification does not change the impact of their behavior. Your challenge now is to recognize these patterns so they cannot be used against you again. My relationship with Grandfather William deepened as well. We began having weekly lunches where he shared family history and perspectives that helped me understand the generational patterns at play. Your father experienced the same treatment from his parents, William explained during one of our meetings. He was the independent one while Judith was favored. Instead of breaking the cycle, he recreated it with you and Amanda. Do you think they can change? I asked. William considered the question carefully. People can change if they recognize their behavior and genuinely want to do better. But they have to acknowledge the problem first, and that is the hardest step. After 6 weeks of minimal contact, I invited my parents to meet at a restaurant to discuss our relationship moving forward. I arrived with a clear set of boundaries and expectations prepared. I want to have a relationship with you both. I began once we were seated, but it needs to be different from what we have had in the past. I outlined my boundaries clearly. No unannounced visits, no criticism of my life choices, no attempts to control my property or finances, and most importantly, no manipulation using guilt or family obligation. I explained that our relationship would need to be based on mutual respect going forward. This sounds like you are punishing us for caring about you, my mother protested. I am not punishing anyone, I clarified. I am establishing healthy boundaries so we can have a positive relationship. These are the conditions under which I can comfortably maintain contact. My father was less receptive. You have always been stubborn and ungrateful, he muttered. This is not how a son treats his parents. This is exactly my point, I replied calmly. When I express a need or boundary, you respond with criticism and guilt. That pattern needs to change if we are going to move forward. The conversation was difficult and at times tense, but by the end we had established a tentative framework for limited contact under my stated boundaries. They agreed to call before visiting and to respect my home as my space. I agreed to regular family dinners at restaurants neutral territory, where the power dynamic would be more balanced. As I had been working on my own healing, Amanda had been on a parallel journey. She reached out to me for advice on financial planning and budgeting skills she had never fully developed due to our parents' constant intervention. I want to be truly independent, she explained during one of our dinners. The house is amazing, but I need to know I can maintain it and my life without their help. I connected her with my financial advisor and helped her create a sustainable budget based on her income rather than parental bailouts. She began taking classes in personal finance and reading books on financial independence. For perhaps the first time in her life, she was taking full responsibility for her situation. Our parents initially resisted these changes, especially Amanda's new independence. They continued to offer unsolicited financial assistance and advice which she now politely but firmly declined. Their attempts to intervene in our lives became less frequent as they realized their old tactics no longer worked. 3 months after the confrontation, we gathered for Thanksgiving at a restaurant neutral ground that helped maintain our new boundaries. The conversation was sometimes awkward but remained civil, most notably when my father began to slip into his old pattern of questioning my career decisions. I calmly reminded him of our agreement. To my surprise, he actually stopped and changed the subject. It was a small moment, but it represented the possibility of real change. Not dramatic transformation, but incremental steps toward a healthier dynamic. As winter turned to spring, I reflected on how much had changed in less than a year. My relationship with Amanda had evolved from distant cordiality to genuine sibling support. My parents and I had established a limited but more honest connection based on my non-negotiable boundaries. Most importantly, I had broken free from the lifelong pattern of accepting unequal treatment as normal. The final piece of healing came during a dinner with William, Amanda, and several friends who had supported me through the ordeal. As we enjoyed a meal I had prepared in my reclaimed home, I looked around at the authentic relationships I had built and maintained. "I propose a toast," William said, raising his glass, "to chosen family and the courage to set boundaries." As everyone clinked glasses, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been painful but necessary. I had learned that family connections should be based on mutual respect and genuine care, not obligation or control. I had discovered that standing up for yourself is not selfish but essential for authentic relationships. And most importantly, I had found that family could be redefined and rebuilt on healthier foundations. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not just acceptable, but sometimes necessary for genuine healing. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, true family supports your growth rather than controlling your choices.